Woods was arraigned today on a single count indictment charging him with murder in the second degree. This in connection with the shooting death of his wife in their Sanborn home on Valentine's Day. At the arraignment today, the prosecutor, who's from the state attorney general's office because this does involve a police officer, gave a few more details about the alleged crime that Woods committed, namely that his wife was shot in the head and that Woods allegedly shot her after she told him that she was leaving him for another man. He went further to say that Woods attempted to clean up the scene, even went so far as to look into purchasing materials which would aid him in disposing of the body. He is being held without bail at the Orleans County Jail and is due back in court on May 8th.
This is Alexis Skoczylas, a 35-year-old mother of two young boys who was found shot dead inside her own home on Valentine's Day. And the man prosecutors say pulled the trigger was the same man she had spent years building a life with, a Buffalo police officer named Lance Woods, who had 18 years on the force and, according to investigators, used every bit of that knowledge not to help her, but to hide what he had done. Before we get into exactly what went down in that house, let us go back and understand who these two people actually were, because this story does not start on Valentine's Day. Alexis Skoczylas was born on March 7, 1990 in the Buffalo area of New York, which made her 35 at the time of her death. There is not a lot in the public record about her professional life or her early years, and honestly, that says something on its own because almost everything we know about Alexis comes filtered through the tragedy of how she died rather than how she lived. What her family made very clear is that her two sons, Davin and Lennox, were everything to her, and her obituary, published by C. Mertz and Son Funeral Home in Buffalo, opens exactly that way, describing her as a loving and proud mother above all else.
In Sanborn, New York, 35-year-old Alexis Skoczylas was found deceased with a gunshot wound to the head by officers conducting a welfare check. Following a coordinated effort between multiple law enforcement agencies, 53-year-old Lance Woods was arrested for the murder. Woods is a school resource officer holding the rank of a police officer and was said to be off duty at the time of the killing. The case has been referred to the New York Attorney General's Office of Special Investigation under New York State Executive Law Section 70B, which governs officer-involved deaths. Woods and Skoczylas were married, and Skoczylas had filed for a contested divorce in September of 2025. Two children live at the residence and are now in the care of relatives. Woods has been a Buffalo police officer since January of 2008 and was promoted to detective in 2017.
She had worked as a corrections officer at the Niagara County Jail for just over a year, between around 2021 and 2022, before leaving that job. After that, her focus was her boys and her family, and that is really the story her people want told. Lance Woods is a different conversation entirely. He was born on September 19, 1972, which made him 53 years old when all of this happened. He joined the Buffalo Police Department on January 18, 2008, somewhere around age 35, and spent the next 18 years climbing through different roles inside the department. By around 2017, he had been promoted to detective and was eventually assigned as a school resource officer, which meant he moved around all the Buffalo City schools, responding to whatever came up, rather than being locked to one building.
New for you this morning. For the first time, we're seeing the face of a Niagara County mother, Alexis Skoczylas, who police say was shot and killed by her husband, a Buffalo police officer. New this morning from the 7 team is now learning Buffalo Police Captain LaShondra Roach is off the job, suspended with pay. Roach met with Buffalo Police Officer Lance Woods at the D District Police Station hours after he's accused of shooting and killing his wife on Valentine's Day inside their Sanborn home.
We do have some information that would lead us to believe that there is some rules and regulations that might not have been followed, but I will let that investigation play out.
While not naming Roach, Buffalo Police Interim Commissioner Craig Macy explains the captain was involved in a check the welfare call for the victim, Alexis Skoczylas.
Check the welfare is being conducted at the D Delta District Station House, and he has his kids. He brings them in there to have a discussion with the captain.
Woods left the station on Hurdle Avenue a little later. While the investigation plays out against Roach, the 7 News I-team has obtained her internal discipline file, learning in her almost 20-year tenure she was suspended without pay twice before. Once in 2016, where documents show officers became involved in a physical pushing incident with each other, and then again in 2017 when, as a lieutenant, she accepted and worked an overtime shift when she was already scheduled for court. In total, she was off the job for 4 days without pay. Roach has been on the job since January 2008. She has the same hire date as Woods. Macy would not say if the two were friends, nor if their conversation was recorded on body camera video. Roach, as I mentioned, is suspended indefinitely with pay. Woods, meantime, is suspended without pay. He is locked up in the Orleans County Jail charged with murder. The Buffalo Police Union did not have a comment.
Money-wise, public salary records show Woods was pulling over $104,000 in the fiscal year 2025 and over $110,000 the year before that, once you add his base pay and overtime together. He had also chosen to opt out of the Police Benevolent Association, the union that covers most Buffalo officers, which means he was handling his own professional protections on his own. Now, here is something that came out after his arrest that is worth sitting with. The Buffalo News got hold of more than 180 pages of his internal affairs records through a public records request, and those files reportedly showed a history that included allegations of using his badge to settle personal scores, a noise complaint in 2011 that turned into internal charges, car accidents, and other conduct violations over the years. None of it ended in a criminal conviction, but it showed a pattern of someone who kept running into trouble throughout his career on the force. Lance and Alexis were married and were raising their 2 sons together in a 3-bedroom house at 5781 Buffalo Street in Sanborn, a quiet little area in the town of Lewiston in Niagara County, New York, that Woods had purchased around March of 2021 for roughly $258,000. On paper, it looked like a normal family setup, but behind that front door, the marriage had been falling apart for a while, and by September of 2025, things had gotten bad enough that Alexis went to court and filed for a contested divorce in Niagara County Supreme Court, meaning she was not just walking away quietly, she was fighting for a formal legal end to the marriage. Even so, the two of them were still living under the same roof with the kids, which is a situation that a lot of people know is one of the hardest places to be stuck in.
Investigators say Woods lived at this home with the victim and their 2 young children. Police say the children are safe and in the care of relatives. Multiple agencies assisted in the investigation, and Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan says the State Attorney General's office will likely step in to investigate as well.
If charges are filed, a whole different system kicks in because the New York State Attorney General's office is the one who comes in for the next step of this, as all cases where there's been a shooting and the loss of life, whether police officers on duty or off duty, is handled by the New York State Attorney General.
What makes this even more striking is that Lewiston Police Chief Michael Salata confirmed publicly that there had never been a single domestic violence call made to that address, not one, meaning whatever tension was building inside that house was not spilling out in ways that police were ever called to deal with. That is the setup. A woman who had already made up her mind to leave, a man who apparently could not accept it, and 2 young boys caught somewhere in the middle of all of it. And on February 14, 2026, everything inside that house finally came to a head. It was a Saturday. Woods had been off duty since the afternoon of Friday the 13th, which meant he had no shift to go to and nowhere to be. Both boys were in the house, and at some point that morning, based on what prosecutors later put on the record in court, Alexis sat down and told Lance that she was leaving him for another man, and that she was planning to do it within the next few days. She was not just thinking about leaving anymore, she had made a decision and she was telling him directly. According to Assistant Attorney General James Mara, who handled the prosecution's case at the April 8th arraignment hearing, what Woods did next was shoot her in the head. And this is the part of this story that is genuinely hard to take in, because prosecutors say the gunshot wound did not kill Alexis right away. She was still alive after he shot her, and according to investigators, Woods did not call for help, did not try to give her any medical care, and did not contact anyone who could have gotten her assistance, even though there was a real possibility that help could have saved her. He just let it happen.
So there you see that Angela Skoczylas, his wife, had filed for divorce. And in this case, I feel that it was an instance of, if I can't have you, then no one can. And once again, this happened on Valentine's Day, but it also takes a strange twist. The reason why they're saying a captain who met with Officer Woods about 3 hours before his wife's body was found, this detective, and they say she, has been suspended without pay. And I'm wondering why that is. Now, they have released a timeline saying that before the body was found, that Woods, along with his 2 younger children, met with this said police captain at the police station. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of that timeline to you so you can get an idea about what they're saying. So they're saying Saturday, sometimes in the AM. They say that is when Skoczylas approximately died. 4:30 on Saturday, 4:30 p.m., Skoczylas' mother calls Buffalo Police Department and ask if someone can get in touch with Officer Woods because she does not have a phone number for him. Now, how strange is it that the mother-in-law doesn't have a phone number for her son-in-law? But let's continue. At 4:33 p.m., Buffalo Police Captain is alerted to the situation and given Skoczylas' mother's information. 4:42 p.m., the captain calls the E-District lieutenant and informs the lieutenant that Officer Woods will have Skoczylas call her mother back in an hour. The lieutenant calls the mother and relays the information. So basically, the captain tells this other lieutenant at the other police station, look, we're going to have Woods to call you. Then Skoczylas' sister calls the Erie County non-emergency phone number and is given Niagara counties. 5:30 p.m., Skoczylas' mother calls the district and says she still has not heard from her daughter. She also relays the Lewiston Police Department is on the scene at Skoczylas' residence and that no one is home. She is directed to the Buffalo Police Captain. At 7 p.m., Lewiston Police calls the district looking to speak to a supervisor. This information is relayed to the Buffalo captain. 7:52, Buffalo captain has a discussion with Officer Woods in person at the district station house and calls Lewis Police with him in her presence, confirming Officer Woods has 2 children with him. So Officer Woods went and met with this captain, whom has been relaying information to his in-laws. At 8 p.m., the shift changed. At 8:05 p.m., Officer Woods leaves, and the captain notifies the district that he arrived with kids and that they are leaving the station house. At 12 a.m., the next day, and that would be Sunday, they discovered the body at her residence. At 12:45 a.m., police department is affirmed that Skoczylas is a homicide victim and that Officer Woods is a person of interest. Buffalo police provide investigators resources to attempt to locate the vehicle Officer Woods was believed to be driving. At 3 a.m., Officer Woods was detained by patrol units from Amherst and Cheektowaga Police. Buffalo Police Department leadership learns that Officer Woods was at District Station hours before the shift change. Buffalo Police at 7:50 a.m. Buffalo Commissioner Craig Macy officially notifies Buffalo Police Department's Internal Affairs Division of the situation and the department's interactions with Skoczylas' family, Lewiston Police, and Officer Woods. At 10:24 a.m., Internal Affairs arrives at Lewiston Police Department, where Officer Woods is being interviewed by the investigators. At 11:15, Internal Investigations suspends Officer Woods. At 3 p.m., the Buffalo police captain is relieved of her duty for the day. At 7:30 p.m., Buffalo police captain is officially suspended with pay pending an investigation. And then on Monday, he was charged, and that is Woods. So why is this police captain being suspended? Now, did Woods come and confide in her what had happened and she didn't relay the information, or what have you? I would assume that is the only way that this person will be suspended, unless he confessed to the murders and she didn't alert anybody. Nevertheless, once again, this is a sad, mistaken case of domestic violence from police officers. This woman wanted to get out, so to speak. She was 35 years old. He was 53. That's almost 20 years of difference.
What he allegedly did instead was go straight into cover-up mode. Prosecutors say he moved her body down to the basement of the house, worked to clean up what was described as a blood-soaked crime scene, and then pulled out his phone and computer to figure out his next steps. The searches that investigators later found on those devices reportedly showed him looking up ways to get rid of a body, including researching 55-gallon drums and using landfills as disposal options. On top of that, he was searching for jobs in Georgia and looking at real estate listings in Florida, which prosecutors say was part of a plan to get out of New York State entirely before anyone could come looking for him. He was doing all of this with his 2 young sons in the house. While Alexis was dead or dying in the basement of their home, her children were somewhere upstairs, and their father was on his phone searching for landfills. While this was happening, Alexis's family was already trying to find her. At 4:30 that same afternoon, her mother called the Buffalo Police Department's E District looking for a way to reach Lance Woods, because she did not even have a phone number for him and could not get in touch with her daughter. A captain inside BPD was looped in a few minutes later. By 4:42, that captain was relaying a message to the family saying that Woods would have Alexis return the call within an hour. An hour passed, Alexis did not call. By 5:30, her mother was calling back again, saying she had still not heard from her daughter, and Lewiston police were already at the house and no one was answering the door. Alexis's sister had also called the Erie County non-emergency line around 5:12 and was sent over to Niagara County. Lewiston Police and New York State Police had already run an initial welfare check at the Sanborn home that afternoon after the family reported she could not be reached and was in the middle of a divorce, but nobody answered the door and the house looked quiet, so they moved on. Then came 7:52 that evening, and this is where it gets even more disturbing. At that time, Lance Woods walked into the Buffalo Police Department's D District station house, and he had his 2 children with him. A BPD captain named LaShondra Roach met with him in person at that station, and while he was standing right there, she called Lewiston Police to confirm that Woods had the kids and that everyone was fine. At 8:05, he walked back out of the station with his children and drove away.
This is Dave McKinley outside the Niagara County Courthouse in Lockport, where former Buffalo police officer Lance Woods was arraigned this morning after a grand jury indicted him on a single count of murder in the second degree. This in connection with the Valentine's Day shooting of his wife inside their home in Sanborn. A prosecutor for the state attorney general's office, which is handling the case because it does involve a police officer, gave a few more details on what allegedly occurred that day, saying that Woods shot his wife in the head after an argument after she announced that she was leaving him for another man. He said that Woods did not contact any medical help and tried to clean up the scene of the crime. He asked for no bail, and the judge agreed. Woods is being held, by the way, in the Orleans County Jail because his former wife used to work in the Niagara County Jail.
His wife's body was in their basement. Her family was burning up the phone lines trying to find her. and a Buffalo police officer walked into a police station, had a conversation with a senior officer, and then left without anyone stopping him. Just after midnight on February 15th, Lewiston police went back to the house on Buffalo Street, forced their way through a locked door, and found Alexis Skoczylas dead inside with a single gunshot wound to her head. The scene was immediately treated as a homicide. By 12:45 in the morning, the Buffalo Police Department had been told that Alexis was dead and that Lance Woods was a person of interest, and by 1:10 they were coordinating with multiple agencies to track down the vehicle he was believed to be driving. By around 3 in the morning, officers from Amherst and Chickasaw pulled Woods over in a traffic stop and took him into custody. He had apparently left the children with relatives before they caught up to him. Investigators later confirmed that the weapon used was not his department-issued firearm, but a privately owned, personally registered handgun. The morning after the arrest, Buffalo's Internal Affairs Division officially launched its review of everything that had happened on February 14th, including what had gone on between BPD officers and Woods at the station house. Woods was suspended with pay on February 15th, and then moved to suspended without pay effective February 16th once the charging documents were signed. Captain LaShondra Roach, who had met with Woods in person at the station while Alexis was dead or dying in their basement, was also suspended with pay on the evening of February 15th, pending the internal review into her actions that night. That investigation remained open as of late April 2026. Because an off-duty police officer was allegedly responsible for a death, New York state law required the case to be moved out of the Buffalo Police Department and handed to an independent body. Under New York State Executive Law Section 70-B, the Attorney General's Office of Special Investigation, known as the OSI, takes over any case where a police officer may have caused someone's death, whether they were on duty or not. Special Investigative Counsel James Mara from the Attorney General's Office stepped in to prosecute. For nearly 2 months after his arrest, Woods sat in the Niagara County Jail while the case was being put together. And then, on April 1st, 2026, a Niagara County grand jury handed down a formal indictment charging him with murder in the second degree, which under New York law is intentional killing and carries a maximum penalty of 25 years to life in prison.
This Buffalo police officer is facing murder charges. He's accused of shooting and killing his wife. His name is Lance Wood. I've learned that he's been on the Buffalo Police Force since 2008. He used to work as a school resource officer and in the B District, which patrols much of downtown Buffalo. Police were called here to this house on Buffalo Street for a welfare check on Saturday. They couldn't find Woods. He was arrested early Sunday. But police say that there's no history of domestic violence at this house. He's not part of the Buffalo Police Union. He used Janus rules to get out of being part of the union. It's unclear what his status is with the department right now, but he's locked up at the Niagara County Jail.
Investigators say Woods lived at this home with the victim and their 2 young children. Police say the children are safe and in the care of relatives. Multiple agencies assisted in the investigation, and Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan says the state attorney general's office will likely step in to investigate as well.
If charges are filed, a whole different system kicks in because the New York State Attorney General's office is the one who comes in for the next step of this, as all cases where there's been a shooting and a loss of life, whether police officers on duty or off duty, is handled by the New York State Attorney General.
On April 8th, Woods was brought before Niagara County Court Judge Caroline Wutazek for arraignment. He came in shackled and dressed in an orange Orleans County Jail jumpsuit and said absolutely nothing throughout the whole proceeding. His attorney, Barry Covert, entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. At that hearing, Prosecutor Mara walked the judge through the full story. The argument that morning, Alexis telling Woods she was leaving him for another man, the shooting, the failure to get her any help, and then the whole sequence of what Woods allegedly did to cover it up. Mara told the judge that the evidence was described as voluminous, built on multiple digital devices seized from the home, along with statements Woods himself made to investigators. And he also noted that Woods had reportedly told officers he was trying to get to Pennsylvania. Prosecutors used that, together with the Georgia job searches and Florida housing searches found on his devices, to argue that he was a serious flight risk and should stay locked up until trial. Defense attorney Barry Covert pushed back and asked the judge to release his client on an ankle monitor, arguing that Woods had 18 years on the force with commendations, no prior criminal record, deep roots in Western New York, and his children and family were right there in the courtroom that day. Covert said there was simply no reason to believe his client would not show up for court. The judge was not moved. Judge Wutazek ordered Woods held without bail, citing how violent the alleged crime was and the fact that he is now facing the possibility of life behind bars. He was transferred to Orleans County Jail rather than staying in Niagara County because Alexis had previously worked as a corrections officer at the Niagara County facility, and the court did not want him housed where she had once worked. His next scheduled court date is May 8, 2026, and no trial date has been set as of late April. To understand what a conviction in a case like this can actually look like, there is a case from Idaho that is worth knowing about. A retired state police trooper named Daniel Howard was convicted in March of 2024 of murdering his wife, Kendi Howard, using a chokehold technique he had picked up during his law enforcement training. After killing her, he staged the scene to make it look like she had drowned in the bathtub and cleaned up the evidence before investigators arrived. The jury did not believe him, convicted him of second-degree murder, and in May of 2024, a judge sentenced him to life in prison with no way out. The overlap with the Woods case is not subtle. A law enforcement officer, a domestic killing, a deliberate and detailed cover-up, and electronic and physical evidence that directly goes against any claim of innocence. These cases show that having a badge does not protect you when the evidence stacks up.
According to Buffalo Police, 53-year-old Buffalo police officer Lance Woods is accused of shooting and killing his 35-year-old wife, Alexis Skoczylas. According to the interim commissioner of the Buffalo Police Department, Officer Woods has been placed on leave without pay. A Buffalo police captain was placed on leave with pay, and her identity has not been released. Buffalo police say the captain had conversations with Woods at the district station prior to Skoczylas' body being found. The police department's internal affairs division is currently investigating the Buffalo police captain.
In Sanborn, New York, 35-year-old Alexis Skoczylas was found deceased with a gunshot wound to the head by officers conducting a welfare check. Following a coordinated effort between multiple law enforcement agencies, 53-year-old Lance Woods was arrested for the murder. Woods is a school resource officer holding the rank of a police officer and was said to be off duty at the time of the killing. The case has been referred to the New York Attorney General's Office of Special Investigation under New York State Executive Law Section 70B, which governs officer-involved deaths. Woods and Skoczylas were married, and Skoczylas had filed for a contested divorce in September of 2025. 2 children live at the residence and are now in the care of relatives. Woods has been a Buffalo police officer since January of 2008 and was promoted to detective in 2017.
Woods was arraigned today on a single-count indictment charging him with murder in the second degree. This in connection with the shooting death of his wife in their Sanborn home on Valentine's Day. At the arraignment today, the prosecutor, who's from the State Attorney General's office because this does involve a police officer, gave a few more details about the alleged crime that Woods committed, namely that his wife was shot in the head and that Woods allegedly shot her after she told him that she was leaving him for another man. He went further to say that Woods attempted to clean up the scene, even went so far as to look into purchasing materials which would aid him in disposing of the body. He is being held without bail at the Orleans County Jail and is due back in court on May 8th.
While all of this plays out in a courtroom, Alexis's family has been doing what families do after something this devastating, which is pick up the pieces and protect the children. Her sister Paige organized a GoFundMe called Support for Alexis Memorial and Her Children, with a goal of $30,000 to cover funeral costs and the legal fees required to get custody of Davin and Lennox transferred to their maternal grandmother, Sherry Loshkiavo. By late April 2026, the fund had raised over $16,000 from more than 240 donors. The family turned down flowers at her service and asked everyone who wanted to help to put them toward the children instead. Her obituary says what needs to be said without dressing it up. Loving and proud mother of Davin and Lennox, cherished daughter, beloved sister. Her boys were her whole world, and she had already made up her mind to get them somewhere better. She filed the paperwork, she told him she was done, and on Valentine's Day morning, when she finally said it out loud and told him she was leaving for another man within the next few days, she never got the chance to follow through on it. Lance Woods has pleaded not guilty and is presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. The case is still ongoing. Do you think Lance Woods actually believed he was going to get away with it, or did he panic and just start making it worse with every decision? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this one. See you in the next one.